is the Vader books. I love the Doc, and the evil versions of C-3PO and R2-D2. I don't know their numbers, but they're fantastic. Love them. And my question is, now that there's the cohesive story group, and now that we've got the sort of deeper backstory from the prequel trilogy and everything else, is there any plans to revisit the novelizations of the original trilogy's books and rectify some of those weird-ass continuity problems? Because, like, I remember reading the Jedi books, and Obi-Wan said, "I gave you to my brother Owen." Not. Yeah. I'm wondering if you guys gonna do something with that. I hope.
What were we looking at?
I mean, we could have done it even before the Legends announcement, and we never did. So.
It's funny. It's like, would you realize you're pitching special editions?
Yeah.
Yes. You don't find that often.
I think we have so much new stuff to do that going back and sort of redoing the old stories, by particularly taking stuff out, doesn't seem to be a priority. It doesn't mean it won't happen someday, but right now there's so much new story. There's so many new stories to tell. That's kind of where our focus is.
Right. There's no real plan to go back to those, but that's not to say there's not a plan to go back and revisit those stories, just in a different way. So on the Disney publishing side, on the Disney Lucasfilm publishing side, I should say, we have some very high-profile authors coming in to retell 4, 5, and 6 from their own unique POVs. We have a panel tomorrow with Alexander Bracken and Adam Gidwitz and Tom Engelberger, and they're each tackling 4, 5, and 6 respectively for fans to see those films through their eyes. And it's pretty unique and pretty amazing.
Awesome.
So. It's not quite what you were asking for, but I know Marvel is also doing recolored versions of our old adaptations of those. So it's the original art, but recolored with modern coloring techniques. I don't think we're changing any. I don't know if we're changing any of the word problems, but definitely going to change the color. It'll be very nice.
It's interesting because, like, I would, and this is my personal opinion, I would err on the historical point of view, and I would rather understand what, say, Donald F. Luke thought Empire Strikes Back was when he wrote that book, and it came out in 1980. So rather than reissue that specific book with individual changes, as Michael said.
That's more what I meant.
Yeah, I think
that's what I meant. Don't reissue them with changes, but reimagine them with all the new information that we now have that we didn't have when they were written in 1977.
And we have so many more potential opportunities to reimagine those stories. I've gotten a couple questions about a webtoon in Korea.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about that, Jen?
Yeah, this is a super fun project I've been lucky enough to work on. One of the nice things about working with Disney is that they have so much greater and international reach than Lucasfilm was able to have. And so we're trying to really get people in other markets excited for Star Wars in places where Star Wars hasn't, really been a phenomenon like it is here. So I've been working on these webtoons, as they call them, in Korea. They have this very popular format, and it's sort of like if you imagine a Tumblr, where you scroll, but it just tells one story, like as you keep scrolling. And it's comic art. And this writer, his name's Ryder Hong in Korea, is writing and illustrating his adaptations of 4, 5, and 6. And is doing it in a very interesting way because he's just tackling it from a completely different perspective than I've ever seen before, because culturally he's coming at it from such a different place. And it's really become this incredibly, to me, just really beautiful, touching retelling that really also adds some stuff about Luke's childhood and, has a lot about Uncle Owen struggling to keep Luke as a boy of Tatooine and as someone whose head is in the stars, and so it's really adding this new chapter to these stories that we've told so many times.
Does he get called Wormy?
Does he get called Wormy?
We did borrow.
I don't know if it translates.
Yeah, but I think we did use some of the radio drama content.
Yeah, some of
Really?
those characters are in there. Yeah.
So there are scenes from the movie that weren't seen in the movie.
Yeah,
but
that are in there.
we do consider it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next.
Hey guys, my favorite thing to do with Canon is definitely Rebels. Everything about Rebels is great. Kind of a related question. In an earlier episode of Rebels, Captain Rex from the Star Tours ride.
Oh, I thought you meant a different Rex.
No. I was just wondering, was that confirmation that the Star Tours company exists in Canon? And if we ride the ride, are we like riding Canon?
Star Tours is an interesting challenge because it covers multiple eras. So you're going to Shake and you're fighting the Battle of Coruscant, and then you got there's Saltov, and then there's Yoda and Mothma giving you orders on what to do. So
it's apparently canon that I get the Gungans every frickin' time. If that's canon, I'm just kind of sad about that for me.
I would say a lot of the framing devices and the elements in it are stuff that we can pull from going forward. But that's an example of that's a specific experience. And it's interesting, we use two words a lot when discussing things. We talk about canon and we talk about authenticity, and they're not necessarily the same thing. We always care about authenticity, but sometimes certain things can't be canon. So there are certain video games where things have multiple endings, or certain experiences that are really tailor-made to exist in our world, on our planet. But the authenticity is, does Vader look right? Does he act right? We're not actually giving you a chapter of Vader's life, but we don't want him, well, there's a reason the hyperspace hoopla doesn't exist anymore. We don't want him dancing and then someone thinking, oh, Vader must dance a lot. Because that's not authentic to his character. So there's two definitions that we kind of use.
And we take that approach with everything we do, even if it's something like Lego, which, I mean, obviously is not canon, but we still want that to be authentic.
Wait, does that mean Darth Vader and Son is not canon?
But it's authentic. Maybe not. Sometimes we just want to have fun.
My name is Elias. My favorite new canon stuff is like enjoying a lot of the new Vader characters and Leia stuff and everything around this. My question, you briefly brought up some media that possibly has multiple endings. There is a company called BioWare that has been doing some possible Republic stuff in that era. A few people have noticed in the most recent expansion, they started telling their story before the Disney thing, and if you continue to do that afterwards. The most recent expansion story group was credited, so I'm just wondering, are the events of that expansion canon, and if they are, does that apply to the events of the rest of the game? And I'm just unclear about that.
As a macro answer, not to that specific question, but in general, as I hinted before, it's like that's not a Lucasfilm story group credit is not a badge of canon, because we do a lot of things, and authenticity is part of that. So I wouldn't necessarily translate that, hey, if a game has a credit to a story group, that means it's been given some sort of stamp. That's not really what that's supposed to represent. Specific to your question, it's like, until we start delving into the deep past of the Star Wars universe, we're probably not going to make any statement one way or another. I mean, the deep past in any other media. The thing that's happened with BioWare is they've created their own universe that's so fantastic and so great that we're not gonna change the way they do things because there are so many people invested in that particular universe. So I just say continue playing the Old Republic the way you've been playing, and build up your characters and enjoy that story, because it's fantastic and they do amazing work.
And that goes along for anything that's sort of something that we were producing that's ongoing. So the Fantasy Flight games fall into that same camp. I mean, we're definitely looking to insert maybe canon material when we can. So when we recently had the cover in one of our Fantasy Flight books that there's been talk in some of the novels about the Jedi Temple and what happened to it after Order 66 and how it became the Imperial Palace. We gave Fantasy Flight instructions to say, you know what? The Imperial Palace is the Jedi Temple.
Illustrate that.
Yeah, illustrate that. And so they did, and they did this great picture, and it's the Jedi Temple with Imperial banners hanging down the sides. That's Imperial Palestine.
On the cover of Force and Destiny. You want to check it out?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, you have to send me that thing.
Hello, my name is Dylan. I guess my favorite new canon stuff, even though it's not technically new canon, would be the Fantasy Flight Armada stuff. I was checking that on the panel before you guys. It looks really awesome.
I mean, everything that they're doing, whether it's card games or the X-Wing Starfighter combat game, is just top notch.
Yeah, their production values are amazing.
Yeah, my question was, I know that you guys are kind of focused right now on the new movie, the new canon, but as one of the fans of the expanded universe who has, been following this for a long time, there's a lot of stories that are left to be told. There's a lot of storylines that are still left unfinished. And I was just wondering, is it possible that we could see those stories come to light one day through you guys? And if not, what can we as the fans do to make that happen, to persuade you to make that happen?
I think anything is possible.
Yeah. The funny thing is, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, is it possible, or maybe 3 years ago, is it possible we might see episodes 7, 8, and 9? I'd be like, well, no, of course not. It's like the farther we project into the future, the harder it gets to be super definitive. I will say this much: what's happened in publishing over the last few years has really been focused on this plan to bring in a lot of new audience and establish this groundwork of what are new movies and what the new universe is supposed to be. Now, once that objective has been achieved, who's to say what the next goal is, and the goal after that, and the goal after that? So, it's impossible to say, oh yes, absolutely, or no, that'll never happen, but we have platforms like this and Celebration and all our other channels to keep you updated as these things move forward. We totally understand what people's interests are and what they love, and you'll find we share a lot of that love, and our interests overlap in the same way, but we're just kind of giving you a snapshot of what our plans are a bit at a time.
But another thing to remember is that this is an ongoing history, whichever version of it, and there isn't a finish. How do you decide when it's finished? You have a family history, one way or another, that continues on through generations, and we could keep going on and telling whatever parts of the story, and each one ends because you have to have some kind of ending, but it's not the end, and then we go on. There's always more to tell, just like real life. So, will we ever finish? I hope not.
Yeah, there's no race to the finish line on this one. I mean, it'll be 10 years between films. Doesn't mean there's going to be 10 years between EU stories. There could be. That's like I said before, anything is possible with this. We're also fans, and we're aware of what you guys want, and we do listen to what you guys have to say.
Thank you very much.
Hey, when are you going to explore the Old Republic part of the timeline like when Knights of the Republic takes place?
Tuesday.
In terms of creating new canon material?
Yeah, like doing like a brand new, new improved Darth Bane story.
I mean, it's definitely not off the table.
Another thing that happens, and this doesn't wholly answer your question, but gives you some idea into process. Kiri Hart, our boss at the Lucasfilm Story Group, really believes in finding where a story wants to be told, as opposed from starting the position of having a gap and putting a story in that gap. So we're really more approaching of all our stories are generated because it was a magical combination of talent coming together with an opportunity to tell it. That's not to say this particular era that you're talking about won't be filled that way, but that's how we're going forward.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Jared. My favorite new canon is the Vader series also. My question was actually the same as the guy in front of me about the SWTOR canonicity, so I'll just ask a different question, which is there or will there be some sort of outward-facing list of canon materials? I use the Wikipedia list, but obviously they have some questions too, and they're not 100% sure. It'd be really nice to have a list of canon that we can just go through and be like, oh, I want to read that, I want to read that, I want to read that. list, a living document.
It's funny, it's like new materials going forward for the most part will be, you know, unless we make extra pains to say that it's not. And regarding old material, it's like, again, this is my own personal preference. I don't want that to be an artificial barrier to stop someone from reading a book just because it's not going to be referenced somewhere going forward, you know. It's like, I'm a huge fan of some really obscure stuff that was trampled way back in 1980 when The Empire Strikes Back came out, and I still like visiting it and putting it out there. And so the idea that the Legends label would be some sort of deterrent for some readers, I hope people don't look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're still putting out, we just put out the giant hardcover collections of the original Marvel Star Wars comics, which are super not canon. But they're fun to read.
Yeah, and I mean, the timeline that we did recently for the novels, I think that's probably the closest thing we're going to get to what you described. And so chances are, if we do such a thing, it might be publisher specific. So that's what that timeline has. It has the movies, Clone Wars and Rebels, and then novels.
Yeah. And I believe Marvel's also going to be working on a timeline as well for their titles.
Sure. Awesome, I didn't know that.
Thank you, guys.